I'm pleased to offer a welcome message for this Creswick Smeaton RSL video. The government was pleased to offer funding for this important local production through the Saluting the Service grants program. This video records the stories of 4 women and 7 men from Creswick who served in World War II. As we approach the centenary of Anzac, which will be the most significant national period of commemoration in the nation's history, I'm reminded that it's so terribly important to record the stories of those who served and sacrificed so much for our nation. It's also important that the next generation hear these stories, and so I'm pleased this video will be used to educate primary students in the Creswick area. I really hope you enjoy listening to these stories.
I joined up from the Metropolitan Farm and I was a drover.
Well, I was living at Creswick, and what I was doing was being a farmer, working on the farm.
I joined in Ballarat, and we were told if we didn't enlist, they'd send the probos out to pick us up. And I joined the 31st Heavy Anti-Aircraft Battery.
Darwin had been bombed, Broome had been bombed, and the outrage that outraged Australians was the sinking of the Centaur. And I said to myself, I must enlist.
When the war started, I was called up. I was 18 at the time. 18 at the time. I turned 18 on the 6th of December 1942.
I was on the farm where I was born at Mount Prospect, Burngala, Mount Prospect.
I was living in Toorak Road, Burwood in Melbourne, and it was horrible, horrible news. I was only about 16, 17. I can't think of anything else at the time. It was just horrible.
Joined the army in Creswick here. Got on the train and went to, Arichuka. So joined the 26 Light Horse Machine Gun Regiment.
Well, I joined the Royal Air Force very early in the war, probably in the first month. They told me that I'd have a chance after I got into uniform of finding what trade I wanted to follow.
Living at Blanpede, and I was telephonist at the Blanpede Post Office. And I stayed there for 17 years, and then the Air Force, I enjoyed that. I don't know why I picked the Air Force, but I reckon I would have been one of the first girls around that district that enlisted.
And I called out for volunteers in 41. Called out for volunteers, they didn't get none, so said, you will go into full-time service in 12 months thereafter. I said, stick it up your ass. That didn't go too well.
I joined the Navy in Amsterdam, and I was placed in Amsterdam, Commandant Zeemacht. Then in 48, I was sent to Indonesia, and I served in Java.
Darwin had been bombed, Broome had been bombed, and so it was almost an emergency. So I had minimum initial training, I think it was 3 weeks in Adelaide, and then went into technical training, and that lasted for 3 months, from which I got 3 weeks leave to go home and help with the harvest. Then I was immediately posted to a base and went in as an airframe mechanic.
We were behind the counter, and behind us there was a lot of shelves with different clothing and things like that. And we had to give them all their clothing to go overseas, everything that they took overseas with them. And I gave all the clothing to a guy I went to school with, but he never came home.
we were sending the bombs as fast as we could over to Germany, like they was sending them over to us. I guess that was all there was to it.
From the time we landed at Maratai, we started loading ships at the wharf at Borneo, at Maratai, and while we were there, we loaded all the ships for Tarakan. We were having our midday meal on Maratai, and I remember coming over the wireless that the that the 9th Division had landed at Tarakan, and that Derek, I think it was, the VC winner, had been killed.
My father was a member of the resistance, and he was a commander of 3 troops. And he was apprehended at home in 1945. He was apprehended at our home and taken away to Amsterdam. And he was later shot on one of the big rivers in Holland.
I was on the gate. The prisoner shot through. He was a German. And the officer said, "Shoot him." And thank God I didn't shoot him, because I should have shot him if I'd have done my duty, but I never shot him. And I'm glad I never. That was the only thing that mattered.
The girls were a hardy bunch of women, and they could drive anything from, they were licensed to drive anything from a motorbike to a tank. And actually at the time my greatest friend was Corporal Biddy Ryan from Ballarat, and she held 18 licences, and at the time Lord Louis Mountbatten came to Australia. She was chosen to be his chauffeur.
Had 2 brothers in. One was with the 6th Divvy. He served overseas, and the other one was reinforcements, but never got over.
I had 2 brothers that joined the army in World War II.
Well, my uncle served at the landing at Gallipoli, and which he survived, and he was later killed at Lone Pine. His name was Frank Mason. He was my mother's brother. My father served on the 29th Battalion at Fromelles and on the Western Front. My brother Frank served at Darwin during the raids and played league football when he could get leave. My grandfather and my great-grandfather served in the British Army in India.
Well, I was discharged at Middle Park, and I came home. It took quite a while to settle down. The moment the whistle used to blow at the factory up from where we lived, I'd fall out of bed because I thought the air raid was on again.
I don't think it's changed my life. Well, at the time, it was over there, and there's the wars on, well, looking back, I didn't think at the time, but it was like a holiday.
3 years in another country I thought that was the best thing I've ever known. Just get to know the people, a smattering of the language. It was an experience which I'll never forget.
If I had my life over again, I wouldn't stumble about it. I would join up again, because I think it was a wonderful experience in my life. and I'd be glad to serve if I had to in any way that I could.